everybody, welcome to Jacob's Quest, and today I just finished watching Knock at the Cabin, the latest film from M. Night Shyamalan, which, you know, that's a thing. I'm gonna give my non-spoiler review really quick, get that out of the way, that way, you know, if you don't want to watch the rest of the video, obviously you don't have to, and then just go watch the movie if you want to, right? My non-spoiler review, simply put, is that this movie is, it's a really good suspense drama type film. It's not really the horror movie that some of the marketing has set it out to be. There's like some horrific things that you kind of see for a second, but it's really not too graphic, and it's not like, you know, it's not like a jump scare, like, oh, horror movie, you know, it's really much more of a suspense type movie. So, you know that going in. However, the acting is really, really good in this movie, especially Dave Bautista. You know, and I would say that, like, this is, the acting and the dialogue is much more on the good side than normal M. Night Shyamalan movies, because, you know, if you've seen some of his other movies, dialogue and acting is always sometimes weird and stilted and robotic, and that's just like a problem that he has, and that's not as much of a problem in this movie as it is in others. So I will say, you know, if you know those kinds of things going in, that this is much more of a drama suspense thing than an actual horror movie, then I think you might walk away having a pretty good time. And, you know, it's not like, I wouldn't even say this is like in his top 3 or whatever, but it's definitely not like a bottom tier M. Night Shyamalan movie. So if you're looking for something to watch, and, you know, this one kind of catches your interest, the premise that you see in the trailer is essentially what you get. So, you know, take that what you will. Alright, I'm gonna move on to spoiler reviews now. I'm gonna go into like everything that happens. So there's your warning right there. Knock at the Cabin, like I said with the trailers, it is exactly what the trailers present it to be. In that, you know, 4 strangers show up to this cabin where this same-sex couple and their daughter is staying at for a vacation, and they start making a demand that you have to decide which of you will sacrifice in order to save the world. And then the thing here is that there's 4 of them, and every single time the family says, no, we're not gonna sacrifice someone, one of them, basically, they put a little cowl over their head, and then they get killed by the other 3 or the other 2 or however many are remaining, right? And every single time one of them gets killed, one of these 4 strangers, this big apocalyptic event happens. They turn on the news so that way the family can see that it's actually happening. And it's just like all over the world, things are just going wrong, right? So first there's like a virus, and then there's plane crashes, and then there's like this massive tidal wave, and, you know, like, oh, the apocalypse is happening. And, you know, it seems like this movie was definitely built on its basic premise of a question rather than having an actual like answer for everything. Because, you know, again, spoiler, there is not some big twist in this movie. There's not like a big reveal telling you exactly, like, you know, here's what's causing everything, here's how this all started, here's why these people were chosen. There's nothing like that, and that I can see definitely frustrating people. It frustrates me a little bit because it is like you walk out of here going like, okay, you know, technically it is really just, it's all about the question, and like, would you do this, would you do that, you know, like that's really what it seems like the movie was built off of. But there's nothing like explanatory there, you know, you never find out what happened and how this is started and how this is connected to everything that's happening in the world in any kind of way, you know. The other thing is that, you know, again, spoiler alert, it turns out that basically by the end of the movie, all 4 of the strangers kill themselves, and the world is like, there's like a big storm, and in some kind of vague way the world is, it looks like it's about to end. There's like lightning striking everywhere, right? And one of the couple decides that, like, okay, I'll be the sacrifice, you kill me, and they say their goodbyes, and it's like this really tragic moment, and then one of them shoots the other one, you know, and they kind of just, it was like a mutual like understanding of like, okay, you're gonna be the one that dies, right? And then everything stops, and the apocalypse stops, and, you know, they kind of just have like this sad ending, but also like, oh, but we saved the world by sacrificing one of us, right? and then that's it. That's the movie. There's no big twist. There's no big reveal. There's, you know, there's not like some kind of like, you know, workaround. It's just like, no, yeah, they did have to do it. Really, they actually did have to end up sacrificing one of their own. And I think that like this feels more like the kind of question, and this is how I described it to my girlfriend I was with. I was like, it feels like you would ask someone this question at a bar. You know, you're drinking at a bar, be like, okay, situation, the world's ending, and you have to sacrifice one of your close family members in order to save the world. Would you do it? You know, like that kind of thing. Like, that's really all this movie is that question. So I don't know how well it really works as like an entire premise, because then you start poking holes in it, right? Because basically what it turns out is that these 4 strangers were just random people throughout the world, or not even throughout the world, they're just throughout the United States, by the way, not even like the whole world, just our country. So, which, you know, again, for an apocalypse thing, it's like only in the United States though, like no one from Canada, no one from Mexico, just United States. Kind of weird, right? Okay. Anyways, 4 people from the United States started having visions, and then they all went on like message boards, and I guess, you know, Reddit or something, and they started talking about like the visions that they're having, and then they just kind of found each other because they're having these visions of the future, and they know exactly what's supposed to happen, and that's how they know exactly what cabin they're supposed to be at, and they know exactly like how things are supposed to happen, seemingly only up to a point though, because they did not know who was going to be in the cabin. They did not know, you know, when they would be able to convince the family to agree to kill one of themselves, you know. So it was kind of strange, you know. You start poking holes in it because you're like, well, what if someone just pretended to have the visions, you know? What if there was like a fraud amongst them? And then there's like this weird thing where one of the strangers was actually someone they had encountered before, and you know, it seems like it's supposed to be a big reveal of like, oh, we knew this guy, he assaulted us in a bar one time, but it doesn't lead up to anything. It doesn't end up meaning anything. It's just a coincidence, and I guess it was there to put doubt in the characters' minds of like, oh, does it, you know, is this all real or fake, you know? But like, I don't know, it's interesting because they do kind of go through every single question. I feel like what he was doing throughout most of this plot was trying to poke holes in it, and by having the characters actually question everything that's happening, you know, because they're like, well, what if this is just pre-recorded footage? What if this and what if that, you know? So, you know, the movie does try to address a lot of those questions, but it does still feel like, you know, because we are never given any kind of answer of like, how is any of this connected to any of this, right? Yeah, I don't know, it kind of leaves me wanting. I think that's my biggest thing, is that like it's okay because it did deliver what the trailers promised, but also like I'm left wanting of like, okay, but I want answers though, like what you know, like what does any of this mean? And I will say, you know, seeing this with my girlfriend who, you know, she came from a much more religious background, right? So she like was picking up on all kinds of stuff that I did not pick up on at all. She's talking about how like, you know, it's very religious in tone here, you know, like how there's like a self-sacrifice angle about saving the world, and they kind of vaguely mention the 4 horsemen for a minute at the end of the movie. And so apparently that's kind of littered throughout this whole thing, and I did not pick up on any of that stuff, except for when they did mention the 4 horsemen at the end. So, you know, I noticed that. So yeah, it does kind of leave this weird feeling, because it's like they ended up having to sacrifice one of their own in order to save the world, and that's, I don't know, the movie almost treats that like a good thing, you know what I mean? Like it's like, but that, no, that's that, you know what I mean? Like there should have been some kind of workaround or something. Like they had to, one of them literally had to die to save the world, but like we don't know why though. We, you know, like there's never like an answer as to like, how is this connected? Is it really just, is God the answer? Is it really just a God thing? I don't know. That's unsatisfying if that's really the biggest answer we got, is that, oh, it's just the apocalypse and God or something. But I don't know. The movie overall, I think it's fine for like a suspense drama kind of thing, for the acting of Dave, because again, Dave Bautista really carries this movie. Also, I know the guy who played Ron in the Harry Potter movies, he's in this movie. He dies pretty early on, which at first was disappointing, because I'm like, oh, I haven't seen this guy in, since he played in Harry Potter, but then he is kind of littered throughout, because he is the guy that, like, they think they saw him at a bar, and he was the guy that they encountered, years ago in their lives. So I don't know exactly how to feel about this movie overall. I think my main thing is that, like, while I had an okay time watching it and it worked from like a dramatic kind of point of view, it also didn't feel that fulfilling narratively, because I'm like, okay, but I still have so many questions, and I'm just kind of left unresolved, because I guess it's over, but like, I don't feel good about the way it ended. I don't feel good about the fact that they did have to end up killing one of themselves in order to save the world, but just because that's what the plot says, I guess. There's never given an answer. So I don't know. I can see some of this, maybe. I don't know how much of a controversy this movie is gonna stir up. I don't know how much of like a, like this is giving weird Christian type things or religious type feels, and it's just all about like, you got to sacrifice one of yourselves and the sins of humanity or something. I don't know. It was definitely it was an interesting movie. I think that's the most I can say. It wasn't like flat out a bad movie. Like, if you guys have ever seen The Happening by M. Night Shyamalan, that movie was ridiculous. So I don't know. I think when it comes to the question of like, the premise of this movie, of like, okay, maybe this movie just wants you to ask you and your friends afterwards, like, would you do it? Like, if that's really the main goal here. For me personally, I came out of it going like, I would need much more proof than just the TV, because these people who had the visions, they have like seemingly, I don't know if arbitrary is the word, but like these rules of like, you can't leave the cabin, you can't leave here. And we had, oh, by the way, they have like these weapons that were just a bunch of different garden tools and stuff like that, like mixed together, like they had like an axe and a pitchfork and a shovel, and like they have like all this stuff like taped together and tied together, and they're like, well, we built these weapons because that's how they were in our visions, and we came to this cabin specifically because that's what we saw in our visions is supposed to happen. And again, we're never given a reason, but why though? Like, all four of you have like these really unique looking weapons, but there's not really a reason for those weapons to exist other than you saw them in your vision that they did exist, or they will exist in the future, so you made them. So it's kind of like that thing of like, if we if we didn't see that it's gonna happen in the future, we wouldn't have made it in the first place. There's not really any other reason for it to happen. It's only this cabin because our vision said it was this cabin. It wasn't like a. I think this movie would have worked better if there was like some kind of, ancient tablet, and then the thing that's ending the world is like one singular hurricane or storm or something that's going to get worse and worse or something. I feel like that would have at least then felt like it was more of a one singular entity that's somehow tied to everything, I don't know, something like that. They could have then like made it more of a the ancient, I don't know, pick one, pick an ancient Egyptian curse or something, and then make it like a, like this thing this prophecy you gotta fulfill every 1,000 years or something, and then you can kind of tie it back to like Noah's Ark or something, like, oh yeah, like that already sounds like the similar premise of an idea of like why the world is ending and how this all works together. At least it seems more cohesive than kind of random things like there's a virus and then there's a big tidal wave and then planes are falling out of the sky. How do the planes fall out of the sky? What's causing the malfunction there? Nothing, seemingly. Magic? I don't know. Is it just God? Is it God again? I don't know. And that's my thing, is that like, maybe if you come from a religious background, some of the things they're throwing at you in this movie just kind of click more, but I came out of it just asking all kinds of questions and starting to poke holes in it, you know? So, I don't know. Overall, you know, I enjoyed the acting, I enjoyed the suspense, but I came away from it wanting more just from the story, wanting more answers, wanting more like, okay, but how and why, you know? So, I don't know. I think it's gonna depend on where you're coming from when you watch this movie, but most of all, this is not a horror movie. This is a suspense drama. That's what this is, you know? So, the marketing, I think, kind of is failing this movie a little bit. But I did have a good time, I guess, watching it, if not like, you know, kind of left me wanting a little bit more when I left. But, yeah. That's my honest opinion about this movie. Let me know what you guys think, if you've seen it, or if you're gonna go see it, or if this kind of, I'll wait for streaming kind of thing. It's not like the bottom tier M. Night Shyamalan, but it's definitely not the top tier. It's somewhere in the middle, so it's okay. That's my that's my final rating. It's okay. Knock at the Cabin. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.